Hello, hello, hello. I'm Rangru,
And I'm Troublemaker.
and we are here doing Clash of the Clans 3. And on a team run in the blue trunks, we have Reaper and Sir Robert of Roll representing Burning Napalm.
And on team 2, we have PLF with ElBubba, Joonnnyyy, and the Chivalrous one.
The Chivalrous.
Yes, this
The Chivalrous run.
feels like a PLF B team, dear lord. I,
And
I, I know Joonnnyyy and I know ElBubba. I do not know the Chivalrous.
yeah, I don't know Chivalrous either. But anyway, the map today is Apocalypse Imminent, and Burning Napalm are one man short.
Yeah, this is going to be it's not too big of a deal because you do get extra units and you do get extra money, but it's a lot easier to divide 3 flanks into 3 than 3 flanks into 2.
Yeah, this map isn't too bad because if you look at Hotel Juliet, Foxtrot, Echo, yeah, pretty easily defendable points. You just have to control those 2 bridges and have a bit of recon on the ocean. The main action is usually this big, like, head-on collision in Delta.
Well,
So,
it looks like with our blue NATO team, we're going to see a pretty massive air rush. They might be trying to go for Delta very early on. They got those great Gazelle Celtics to try and do some crazy anti-air damage. Their range is retarded.
And
Awesome.
Redfor
Second ice in the game.
and Redfor are doing just a very standard ground push, bunch of tanks, AA, good old cheap stuff, good old Redfor.
And they're playing the meta here because they have just one W3W so-called here, which is, you know, if my memory serves me correctly, slightly anti-air. If there is an air rush with no anti-air helicopters, it might pick off a few units. It's just, you know, a neat thing to add into a ground push.
But the Celtic will probably snipe it, as the Soak only has 2,400 range, while the Celtic has 2,600. So it's probably going to get shot down first.
It's just, you know, it's a weird way of thinking because the so-called itself is very, very cheap. And, you know, the Celtics will never pay themselves off. They're too expensive.
And it only has one purpose. To Celtic.
Yeah.
Well, the so-calls are pretty nice anti-infantry and everything. It's cannon and rockets. So yeah, this should get underway any minute now. Teams always like to take their time during a tournament. Do like to note there's a Berentino being brought out right from the start. I've seen a lot of teams now starting to use the Berentino and Napalm rocket artillery a lot more often.
And he's also got a supply truck here, so I think he'll want to get to the front and just get off 2 blasts in a row, which is just madness.
It's great for blocking out, blocking line of sight and blocking the enemy from moving up. It's like, especially in Delta, if there's 2 bridges, you put one good napalm right in the middle, no one can get across. But that shouldn't really affect our Blue 4 team too much, as they are doing a helicopter rush.
And I feel like they might get stomped by this. This is a lot of tanks. This is a lot of vehicles. They can just move around. They don't have to engage Delta.
They could just go around, maybe go into Hotel Foxtrot through that way if you do it fast enough. Doesn't seem like Blue 4 bringing too much around that end. Just looking, they got a few more orders and AMXs, but that's about it.
They could just burn into Charlie. They don't even have to engage Delta because the map is very non-linear. We'll have to see how these teams play out. I mean, these armies are very, very different.
One very helicopter rush. It's even going to be, if his helicopter doesn't work, Blue 4 not going to have any ground to hold on to, and it's going to go downhill fast if they don't get this helicopter rush into Delta.
And they do have 4 commands out, so that's not too bad. They'll be able to grab their 2-point bases, basically. And any second now.
Any second now. Bloody hell. They always like taking their time.
Kind of running out of things to talk about.
Not nice scenery in the map. You got these old towns and towns, forests. I do have to admit, I do like how the towns look now in Red Dragon. The whole like Korean, Chinese vibe to it.
They look more real than the actual like westernized homes that we saw in the last game.
They all look like Lego houses in Airland Battle. Like he's like, because they're all like always bloody bright colours and everything in perfect feel. Here it's a bit more slummy. Some of these places.
And people kept saying, like, every time I criticize or you'd criticize like towns in Airland Battle, people were like, no, that's how it actually is in Sweden. You know, it's like, no, it isn't.
And
Sweden's
yeah,
quite nice.
It's quite a nice country. Bloody hell, 5 minutes.
Yeah, these guys are taking their time. Probably talking with each other like, so you want to surrender? And it's like, no, we had 3 players. Why would we ever surrender?
And helicopter planes, or we do got a Mirage run on sea and a Raphael and an F-15.
Oh, and this is like very much Airland Battle-ish play. When you do a helicopter rush, you make sure to get lots of air superiority fighters to knock out the enemy's planes. But surprise, there are none.
And he's going to be napalming the bridge into Delta. That's going to block off one of Redfor's entrances into the zone. And with his napalm, all of Redfor stuff is ground forces, so it could actually slow them down a bit. And I think it's looking pretty good for Bluefor if they can capture his point. You know, they do have maybe a little bit too much helicopter infantry. It's not even enough to really garrison all the towns.
No, but they do have 2 anti-tank weapons, which will do very, very well. And oh dear lord, there's actually a command infantry in one of these helicopters.
Capture ASAP. The Raphael did got shot down, but the F-15 is going to get away scot-free. And oh, Redfor, they're going right through the napalm. Just buggering right through Mr. Joonnnyyy with his BTRs and AA.
Yeah, and this is unfortunately going to be the right play. There's a lot of anti-air being deployed here by PLF, like ridiculous amounts. Like those Pragas, the PMLs, the Iglas, the Tors coming up. They can just engage this very easily.
And Bluefor, they have landed into the town. They're going to have their foothold in there, and it's worked pretty well. It's a successful helicopter rush. If we can just hold it, that's the question.
Now the big thing will be, and if you look at Foxtrot, like they have nothing there. If they can secure Foxtrot and Echo, get some commands into those locations, they will be able to actually win
and hold it down. And it's not too hard to hold down Foxtrot and Echo, as I mentioned before. So there's 2 bridges you just have to kind of camp.
It looks like we're going to see some Commandosies at Delta actually going to be getting pretty damn close to getting into a town.
Yeah, they did get in. There's Feldjägers right next to him, you know. And Feldjägers are pretty badass, so those Commandosies probably going to get their butts kicked. And the Burntino. I forgot about that. It's gonna mess Bluefor up badly.
And it's kind of simple game mechanics. When you deal with an area of effect weapon, a lot of stuff across a large area, you're gonna take small incidental amounts of damage.
Oh, the Ak-38's dropping in the Nape as well. It is getting very hot in this town. I see napalm in the bridges to stop any reinforcements. That's smart.
Yeah.
SU-7 BKLs.
This is just a bomber sandwich, just pretty much the entire field now is fire.
Yeah.
And infantry getting the cover they more or less need to get into towns. There are some false Grimjagers out, but they aren't nearly as effective as they were like 2 months ago.
Where they had 80% G11 accuracy and could snipe like basically eliminate infantry squads in a couple seconds. You have seen that GIF of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Feldjäger thing on top shooting the minigun?
I feel like PLF is really just schooling this team right now. They haven't captured any zones and they're bleeding hardcore, but I mean they have recon deployed to the north. They seemingly will capture Delta now after a helicopter rush success. They're bringing BTR 70s and BTR PBs in the south to kind of poke.
Oh yeah. Oh, those BTR 70s could actually get the Echo CV if they look hard enough.
And there's just not much defending here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was very much an all-in, and they're just going to keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is... these vehicles are all basically free. Here comes a piece, Ryan. Oh, dear Lord.
I only have Maverick, so... and it misses both times.
That is brutal. So yeah, he's just going to go right past Echo and go straight for Bravo.
And this is what you were saying earlier, where they can just completely bypass, like, Delta and go around the enemy.
Now they have rallied out a Tiger Head. It's got 8 shots. There are 5, 6, 7.
2, 4, 6, 7.
So if he gets every single shot off, he can stop this from destroying him.
And he also has a cannon and rockets as well, which can kill the BTRs.
Ah, yes, touche.
Touche.
The auto cannon, very
The
nice.
auto cannons. Bloody giant 30 mil. Yeah, Peace Shrine coming in once again.
And of course, in the long run, this doesn't matter too much. They've gained a lot of information. They ran all these vehicles through the towns at Echo, so they know that the command is in the woods. Now they're running them through Bravo, and they're gonna spot that command.
Yeah, I think I did get a spot on it. So, artillery shortly. No,
They're actually moving it, because that was a full-on spot. Like, this is gonna be very brutal. You're probably gonna put it into somewhere it's actual cover.
Yeah, it's like right in the open. They should have really put it in a forest or tree line. Keep it nice and secured.
And now PLF are moving lots of commands up to try and capitalize on this huge gain of theirs. The bleeding has stopped. And they will gain those 2 points.
But they basically did the best way to deal with infantry in that town. They just napalmed the crap out of it. And then just let them all burn up and move in and claim it for themselves. So yeah, very good player. Lots of napalm.
It was really unfortunate for this new team for the tournament, because they just got completely out-united. They brought like a helicopter rush, and the enemy brought just ridiculous amounts of anti-air units.
And the Berantino and all the napalm really helps completely stop that rush.
And all those kind of units, they're not easy to hit. I mean, like, they brought the Book and the Tor, which is just a radical air combination.
And they didn't really bring up too much EA within that helicopter order. It was like a Tan Sam and a few man pads, but nothing really heavy for shooting down planes. Which is understandable, because it costs a lot of money to get a good anti-plane air net.
Yes, I suspect that relatively soon we'll be seeing some blind artillery shots at Echo. It won't be long. In the meantime, PLF just completely schooling this team. They pushed into Charlie with Pragas of all things. Just, it's weird.
The Pragas are really good now since LM Battle, because they gave them extended range. In LM Battle it was 2.4k range, and now it's 2.6k for 15 points. Absolutely, like, bang for your buck AA unit.
And they're not, like, overstretching. I mean, Joonnnyyy is moving that Praga back. He doesn't want it to get bombed or anything like that. Like, he's just, keeping it veteran.
Now both sides just artillerying each other. To see the Browns going in midair. What did Blue 4 have for artillery? They got a Kaiser, or Caesar, however you want to say it. And I believe Redfor has a couple mortars. Oh,
there's also an AML 60, 20 Serval out.
Ooh. Don't see those too often.
Not at all. Mostly because they're very expensive, because they have an anti-tank gun and an autocannon. Yeah.
It's a very nice, it's a good mix between like an artillery, it's like a red hybrid between an artillery piece and like a vehicle, like an autocannon vehicle. But it's pretty good for just a very short range bombardment and then getting out. And it can defend itself if it does get flanked.
I'm drawing a blank on this artillery unit, but it's an American artillery unit that's just insanely heavily armored, and it can actually like pack a punch.
Paladin?
Paladin, yeah. It reminds me of like a really like cheap and weak Paladin. The mortar version of Paladin.
Yeah, Paladin's also quite nice now, as you get 2 of them in a card for 85 points, which is pretty cheap for a super artillery unit.
So planes coming in. We have double bombers. I'm guessing
yeah.
PLF is just going to try and poke around with that. And we got a Prowler out, which would work really well with a really bad player.
Though Seed has been, Seed is a lot better now. All Seed missiles have 25% extra accuracy. So usually it's around about 50% base hit or miss accuracy across the board for all Seed aircraft. And I think for the Prowler it's 60% chance to hit, which is pretty high compared to like the 40% before.
And PLF just used some really good micro with their books. They turn them off until the Prowler flies overhead. And then once he's flown overhead and cannot fire, turn it back on, and the Prowler is now no more.
And they use their non-radar AA to kill it. Like, I have that Igla Run M. I've seen that Igla Run M's that shoot down Raphaels, F-15s. Probably the best man-pad in game, I have to say, at Igla Run M. Absolutely phenomenal. Oh, Tornado as well going to be coming in.
Looks like he learned his lesson.
Yeah, bringing it back. We do like to know that Johnny has a little bit of a hold into Foxtrot. Got a few vehicles now, like a recoilless rifle jeep and a autocannon APC. Just having a nice scouting position. No, PLF now bleeding on the enemy at plus run, gaining some points. And they're just slowly but surely moving in, taking ground.
And basically at this point, all PLF needs is vision. If they can just spam focused areas or targeted areas, or I think it's corrected areas. Yes, corrected areas with artillery, they will just kill everything.
And like Redfor, they don't really have. They had to set up a defense fast, so they just got a bunch of infantry, a couple ATGM guys in this town. In Charlie, not really too much, like nothing really like bloody substance. And PLF are just slowly but surely moving in with infantry and gaining a foothold.
And it's kind of like these guys now, bringing out a T-80 despite them being, you know, completely not worth their price. Just to say, like, yep, we did it.
Yeah, I believe they brought that right at the start of the match. The URAM now is like one of their starting units. And just bloody hell, napalm all across the board in Charlie. Both sides getting in it.
Well, it's kind of weird because, you know, Blue brought in a Phantom to do some napalming, but by the time it got there, everything was already napalmed.
Just adding to the fire. Tornado going to be dropping in some bombs on the Commandosis.
Now these are completely dodgeable, but you have to pay a lot of attention to this.
He did dodge him with the Commandosis. He moved him just out the sector, so it barely missed him. Good micro, from Johnny.
In fact, the only damage you really got there was the morale damage caused by being around an area taking damage. Most ridiculous idea possible.
Yeah, PLF, they could easily neutralize Charlie. They do have this whole, like, riverside. They could maybe put an infantry CV on and hide it. And, you know, be gaining +3, which would be an absolutely incredible rate. Was that Rocket Arty? Is that Rocket Arty? Yeah, we have 2 Smirks. There was a cluster Rocket Arty, so they're going to be trying to find a CV, but the CV is an infantry CV. So, well, clusters don't do anything to infantry CVs. So, they're going to be good to go. Just completely lighting up the area.
And they keep pushing them back further and further and further. These napalm pushes are just so successful right now.
Like, it's not too much away from Redfor. They had to move back Rolands due to the cluster arty, keeping them at bay. And yeah, just PLF slowly but surely chipping into Redfor's defenses. It's kind of funny because Redfor, their team name is Burning Napalm, and that's how they're losing. It's by napalm.
Ooh, we have an amphibious landing to the south.
Oh, BTR 60p getting into the town. I mean, into the forest. I keep mixing up forest with town. I do not know.
Just one, but he will get into the town eventually because there is 2 little towns just north of that. And it's a really interesting position that, you know, once again, because there's only 2 of them, it's really hard for 2 people to do 3 people's jobs. It's easier for 2 people to do 4 people's jobs. Far easier.
Lot less micro they have to deal with, because these guys are having to deal with like a lot. They're having to control like 1.5 more units than PLF would have to, because they're making up for one extra player. So it's a lot more to micro and a lot more on your plate, which is a bit of a pain. Kind of sucks though I didn't have a third player. I think he don't know why he wasn't in here. That probably would have helped him a lot better.
Yeah, and I think that this will probably go very bad very quickly. Motostrucky in the south has hit the town. There's not really that much at Foxtrot. They can actually just move in a few forces and neutralize that. And they're actually pulling along that northern flank and have forces moving along it.
Yeah, PLF just slowly chipping into him.
I mean, here comes that W3W Sokol. Going to pick off some helicopter recon and a Cobra, and then run in there and go ahead and do some rockets on those infantry.
Blue 4 are doing a counter-attack into Charlie. Got some commandos and Hudo Wrens to get into the town. And there's not too much in here. Redfor at the moment does most directly in an almost dead Spada Polish infantry unit.
I'm guarantee you we just offended like 12 nations. Butchered 12 languages.
Yeah, those commandos are really nice. Australian shock infantry. I think I just like them a lot because they use a bloody AUG, the Stera AUG rifle, and it just the icon of it. I know it looks pretty neato. And they're using these Hudo Wrens as well. It's an awesome, I believe, Japanese paratroopers, because M67 recordless rifle has like 1,400 range, which is insane.
A lot of material coming out recently on hidden stats, and like Vasily Kripsev of Wargame Cup fame.
Oh yeah.
He did this huge breakdown of which weapons were the best, based entirely on hidden stats.
Like the machine guns, wasn't it?
Yeah, which was weird because you'd think it'd be like
Zone 2
submachine guns or something that's not easily available.
And long story short, basically the machine gun free MG3 is supposedly the best machine gun in game thanks to its wicked fire rate. And there's also another super long mega thread about all the tanks and basically how tanks aren't really in a good state at the moment. But it was a very good thread as well because they had a lot of stats and actual statistics to back up their claim without going too ranty.
Yes, and lots of dramas too. Lots of dramas. Every single balancing thread in the world always goes one way. There's one guy who comes presenting facts, and then there's a group of people who discount those facts based on the fact that that person's not particularly great at the game.
Yeah, and that's why I always bring popcorn to those threads.
Popcorn.
I do love my popcorn. Roast Morpheus napalm fire. Just constant bloody napalm. I think this town hasn't been napalmed at all. It's just constantly under fire.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this steady stream of infantry that has been coming in for PLF it's just not stopping.
They're not really dedicating their back units too much. They have like a T-64 BVIs and BMP3s in the back that they haven't really been dedicating to this push. And there's not really anything here to stop him. No enemy tanks, no enemy ATGMs. They've just been a bit passive with him. But
here they come.
Oh, yeah.
Just trying to put that push. The napalm has been kind of stopping their vision. And it's kind of a weird, funky part of their strategy that maybe they'll change up a bit. But then again, now since the napalm got everything panicked and drop morale, lower on health points, they can just kind of come in and clean up.
And then see his T-64 is completely eating up his Kerchakers before he can get into the town. Just trying to stop Blue from moving up.
Those Swedish elite units, unfortunately, will not make it to these towns.
It's a pretty expensive loss. Like a Kerchaker's 45 points base. That's not including the infantry transport. A very expensive elite infantry unit to get.
So now we're seeing a rollout of Toes and Sheridans on Blue 4 side, and Unfortunately, those are basically both covered. Just
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous numbers of tanks, and there's a Strela there as well.
We do have Link's Totu, and that Link's Totu can open up his T-64's relative ease, but the Strela gets it first. And East Harridan's not the best anti-tank choice. They do have an ATGM, but it's a pretty rubbish ATGM. So this is not looking good for Blue at the moment.
Yeah, they're kind of just cheap, spammable tanks, and that's... I think they have their place in the game. They're really good in the front, and they're very good at flankings.
Yeah, they're great flanking tankers at speed, and ATGM, and just... It's a very versatile tank, I think, the Saradon. Because it can also mess up infantry with its little stub-nosed gun.
I just think that it needs kind of more support than being by itself.
I think it could be a little bit cheaper, to be entirely honest, but that would sort of obsolete the Starship series of tanks.
We have a push into Foxtrot that we completely missed.
Oh!
Dear Lord.
Yeah.
And it's a big infantry push, too. Like, it's probably about, like, 10 times the number of units that they actually need for this push, but, you know, how could they have known?
Yeah, Rondees is clearing out the forest, and they're probably going to clear us out with relative ease. And
Yeah, they've dropped the infantry off. They're going to move the vehicles in, and I mean, BMP 1Ds are no joke. They have anti-air or anti-tank and anti-infantry capabilities.
You do not mess with automatic grenade launchers. Probably one of the most deadliest weapons in game altogether is the automatic grenade launcher. Because if it doesn't kill a tank, it's going to stun the everlasting crap out of him that they can't move.
So I think this is going to be pretty damn close to over. Charlie has been basically neutralized. There is now a command infantry in play there. Foxtrot is being overwhelmed, and there's basically no forces that can get this back.
Yeah. And
He's
probably...
walking infantry into vehicles that have frag rounds. Yeah, this is you know, rather unfortunate kind of ending for Napalm Sunrise. They will, of course, move to the losers bracket, so they'll get a second chance. I can look up real quick who I think they'll be facing.
Okay.
Maybe nobody.
Oh,
Yes.
F-15D. Oh, that's going to be a nice big explosion on the infantry, and kaboom! I always love those big bombers that just drop crap tons of explosives.
Yes, it looks like, oh dear lord, I feel really bad for this team.
Who they facing?
They're facing the loser of WTF Team Killers and no unit. That's ridiculous. That's like, that match could be the finals. These poor fools. They're gonna have to watch that match and find some pretty serious weaknesses of play, and bring a third player, of course.
Yeah, because doing it 2 people in a 3-person match, it's too much micro. You cannot do it effectively. And you see this PLF's completely rolling them over now.
Oh yeah, ElBubba has been super good about taking that top. It's just
rolling in.
Yeah, he doesn't even care if he loses tanks at this point. He just took like 2 pot shots on his T-80UM. Did he care? No.
Nope. It's just very just like, you know, Soviet style, just completely overwhelming with a giant wave of land units with mechanized and armored vehicles working together.
Here comes some massive infantry losses. Yeah.
Yeah, massive infantry losses, not too much of a tank still. BMPs amazingly survive. And they're probably going to get that TACCOM. The five-man squad. And I think it's not going to be too well for him.
They're surprisingly resilient.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's surviving.
They have Spetsnaz pouring on them.
Oh, nah, there they go.
One lucky shot was all they needed. Yeah, Panic is please. Is this +9 that I'm seeing right here?
Yeah, it's +9.
Dear Lord, did it?
Wow. That is bad.
I guess artillery killed Echo.
Or
Or random bomber.
I think that was a cluster. Yeah, it was cluster RT and Echo.
So that's rather unfortunate for them. And
But they did do a good job at the start with that helicopter rush, especially against PLF. PLF are a pretty good team. Very high skill at game, been in many tournaments before. And they did do a fairly decent job for their first time. So nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing to be ashamed of indeed.
No, not at all. And, you know, they, I think, came second or third in the last Clash of the Clans.
Yeah, I think a second or third.
I think they came either first or no one cared in the 3v3 Glorious Design.
Mm-hmm.
One or the other. But yeah, it's just, you know, they're playing Soviet. They're not using any cheap, crappy units.
Mm-hmm. This very standard good deck, like great tank forces, great AA, great planes, just all around everything's really well balanced and awesome for Soviets. And the Berntinos and Napalm bombers just completely dominate infantry.
Oh yeah, they've actually full on burned through 2 FOBs from their Smirches and their Bertinos.
Those things take up quite a lot of supply.
Whereas when you look at the blue team, they have 2 full FOBs, and they have a Caesar sitting next to it.
Yeah, and that's the only artillery piece they brought out. Too bad they didn't use that Caesar a bit more for counter-artillery.
They're really powerful.
It's very short dispersion range of very accurate artillery pieces.
And I guess that'll do it. I mean, ElBubba is a psycho killer. You know?
Oh, the KD. I feel really sorry for burning Napalm. That was just... like, PLF got like a 3 times KD advantage over you. I'm bleeding out. Bleeding out.
I mean, ElBubba could have probably 2v1'd him. He is a psycho killer. He's always good. The Chivalrous one, I'm assuming, at the southern flank. Looking at this real quick, and Joonnnyyy obviously got a little bit of extra points from that middle, but dear God.
Yeah, very good match. Yeah, very good match. And yeah, I guess that's all we have time for. This has been Rangry.
And I'm Troublemaker.
Take it easy.